Hello everybody, it's Sally here. Today I'm going to take you through how to knit this rather pretty edging, either at the beginning or at the end of your knitting. This is suitable to go either at the bottom or at the top, so you can carry on and knit it straight from a piece of stocking stitch. When you get to the end of it, you just have to turn the work first, and then if you also cast on with waste yarn, you can go back and rehang the bottom and knit it onto the bottom as well. I got the idea for this from watching a video by Marianne Hainio, who has done a no-roll edging on her YouTube channel. But I made a few alterations to her original idea, because her original idea actually had this part of the no-roll edging as the right side, whereas once I'd made it or experimented with it once or twice, I decided I liked the look of this to be the right side. And also hers started on a closed edge, either a cast off or a cast on edge, and I wanted to be sure that what I was going to do would work on an open piece of knitting. I was working from live stitches, because I'd already knitted the pieces that I wanted to add it to, and I didn't really want to go back and have to knit them again. And so I started experimenting with her idea, and once I'd turned it and got this very nice edging on it, I thought, well, that almost looks like crochet. And I thought, well, this is just one repeat of the no-roll edging, and I thought, well, why not add a second repeat? Also might help it to sit a bit flatter, because I was still having a little bit of trouble with this rolling over. That might be because I've turned it. And so I then added a second repeat on there, and I thought, well, actually, well, why not go one step further and add a third one, which is what this one is. I mean, I suppose you could carry on and add as many as you like, but you'd need a lot of patience, because you do need to cast off at the end of each one of these repeats. So if you do it 3 times, you have to do 3 lots of casting off. So be warned, you need a bit of patience for that. I mean, you could keep the live stitches after the first repeat and then carry on and do the second one, but you wouldn't get this nice ridge coming through the middle here. It would probably look as nice, but it would just look different. But I'm actually going to show you today how to do it with the casting off, because the method I'm going to use means that you don't have to pick up the stitches for the next repeat. So to knit this, I've just done a small piece of knitting on my machine, because you don't want to sit and watch me do this for hours and hours, which I'm just going to remove this and find my transfer tool. I want a 1x2 one, and I'm going to turn it around and rehang it so that the right side is facing me, just onto the same needles. Now I fold the waste yarn towards me so that the purl bumps make a nice little ridge. It does make them a little bit easier to pick up all the way along the edge here. And so this is why it's easy to do from live stitches. If you want to pick up from the bottom, you can do. You obviously just turn it upside down. For this edging, you need an odd number. So here I actually deliberately cast on 21 stitches, so I have got an odd number. But if you've got an even number, either make an extra one on your last row or decrease one when you turn and rehang it. But you need an odd number. You also need to weight this well. You can leave that waste yarn and take it off later. And so weight it well. And this is only a tiny piece of knitting, but if you've got a big piece on here, make sure you do weight it well. So the first thing you do is thread up your yarn, and for the first repeat I did it at main tension, the second repeat I did it at main tension -1, and the third repeat at main tension -2. So on the first row my main tension is 7 on the dial here, side levers forward. I'm going to knit 1 row. Now I'm going to pull the intermediate needles out to holding position D or E, whichever brand of machine you've got, set my carriage to hold, which on silver reeds obviously rustle levers to 1, and then I'm going to knit 3 rows. Now it's a good idea to push out the needles that have been knitting to hold, and hold the knitting down underneath to make sure that the live stitch comes forward and it doesn't pop undone. This just makes sure that the correct stitch knits back on the next row. Cancel hold on your carriage and knit 1 row. Now if you only want to do 1 repeat of this pattern, you now cast off around the gate pegs and take it off the machine and you're done. And you can see this little tuck stitch pattern that's been appeared here. But if you want to do a second repeat, rather than casting off around the gate pegs, I employ a cast off method that the people with the plastic bed machines might be familiar with, where you cast off around the neighbouring needle. And that means you then have a loop over the needle and you don't have to pick up for the next row. So rather than going around the gate pegs, come in front of the gate pegs, pull that empty needle out back into working position, wrap the yarn over it, and then cast off the 2 stitches that are on needle 2. Pull that forward. Transfer in front of the gate peg to needle 3, pull needle 2 out, come up between 1 and 2, and then cast off those 2 stitches on there. So carry on doing this all the way across. So I'm trying not to get my arm in the way of the camera, but you see me do this now, so I'm just going to repeat this all the way over. And by doing this form of cast off, it leaves you with a stitch from the cast off edge effectively is left on the needles, and you can then just carry on and knit the second repeat. It saves having to go back and pick the edge up, which was rather a nifty idea, I thought. Do occasionally have the odd brainwave. If you're like me and casting around in front of the gate pegs, it's kind of ingrained in your knitting consciousness, don't panic too much if you do one in front of the gate peg. I will do one here in front of the gate peg by mistake, and I'll show you how to correct it in a minute. And also don't worry if for any reason the yarn doesn't go over the needle, gets caught under it. You can just pick up the edge stitch when you come to knit the second or third repeat. Whoops, didn't mean to pull that one forward. When you get to the last one, you just pull the needle forward. So you can see you have got, your work is cast off, but it's just caught on these needles. Now, if you've got it caught around a gate peg somewhere, you won't be able to pull this needle, this knitting away from the sinker post. So there's the one that I've got caught on the sinker post there. I just lift it off and tweak it up and off the sinker post and put those back onto the needles. And there we have it. Now your yarn is at the wrong end, as it were, because you've obviously cast off from the carriage side. So you need to do a free pass, which either as the needles are all the way out to D, you can set the carriage to hold and move it across, or you can of course use your carriage release. I'm just going to set mine to hold and move it across. And then thread up for the next repeat. So I'm going to reduce my tension by 1 whole number, knit 1 row, pull the alternate needles out to D, or E, the other brother, set to hold, knit 3 rows, and then push these needles out to D, poking the knitting down underneath to make sure that only the actual last stitch knitted gets pushed forward, because it does have a bit of a tendency to pop undone. And there we have it, cancel hold and knit 1 row, and then cast off again as you did before. If you want to do 2 repeats, again you just cast off around the gate pegs and take off the machine. If you want to go for a 3rd one, oops, I just pulled that so tight. Didn't mean to do that. Right, so cast off, pull the empty needle forward, wrap over and pull through the 2 that are on needle 2. Pull forward, forwards, wrap. Just make sure that you pull the empty needle back out to D and wrap your casting off yarn over the top of it, and you'll get that pick up row automatically for your next repeat. I have knitted about 20 or so different samples of this, trying it at different tensions, right side, wrong side, casting off in between, not casting off in between, and painful though it is, I did find that the one where you cast off in between each repeat did give the nicest look at the end of it. So you will certainly end up getting lots of practice at casting off if you do this one. Obviously it won't be such a pain if you're doing this on a chunky or a mid-gauge machine, because you're going to have fewer needles, and I think especially on the mid-gauge ones that don't have the ribber, like the LK 150, this is going to be a really nice edging to do. I'm going to get my LK 150 out in a little while, because my mum wants me to knit her a top in double knitting. Again, it's another pattern out of Machine Knitting Monthly, which I have to say the last few issues have been really good. So there we go. So I can pull that forward. I've got nothing stuck on a sinker post anywhere that shouldn't be stuck behind a sinker post. And I just need to free move my carriage over here. So I'll do the carriage release this time. So pop the lever on the top, pass it over. It does mean that the needles get pushed to C position, so just push them back out to D. I'm going to put my tension down 1 more whole number, so I've gone from 7 to 6 and now 6 to 5. And cancel hold, knit 1 row. Made a right mess of that. So I've got 2 needle pushers here. One of them is a silver reed one and the other one is a brother one. And for some reason there must be a different gap on one of them, because it keeps picking up the wrong stitch, so pushing them all outwards. So don't panic, just put them back where they need to be. Right. Set carriage to hold, knit 3 rows. Ooh, hang on a minute, what's happened here? Oh, It's alright, I've got an overhead yarn tangle. It's all gone a bit peaked on. I got caught up. I have to cut that. The experts cock it up sometimes too. Now then, what's gone on here? That didn't knit. Something happened to me overhead tension and it got caught up, so I've just unravelled the dodgy row. So what happened is I have got one row that's knitted with the needles out in hold, so I need to do 2 more, I think. I got 1, 2, yeah. That's it. Just tie that join in, and then push these out. Again, obviously the tighter the tension gets, the more you need to pay attention to making sure that the stitches aren't flipping out the hooks and that you are pushing out the last one that was knitted. Cancel hold and knit 1 row. So that's my last repeat, so I'm going to now cast off. I always pull down enough yarn to cast off. I don't leave it threaded up, which is at least 3 times the width of the knitting on the machine. It's obviously just a tiny piece. So now I am going to cast off around the gate peg. Because I'm not going to do another repeat. And around the gate peg cast off gives a lovely neat edge to your knitting. Also make sure you don't pull the cast off edge too tight, and I find it fairly quick and easy to do. I always, because you know it's like putting your finger on your nose, isn't it, or touching your ears, your hands know where they are in relation to each other, so I put my finger out underneath the hook there. So then I'm not fishing around like this, I can more easily locate the hook with my transfer tool. Make sure these latches are open. Oops, dropped it. Well, there you have it. So secure that last stitch cast off. Take the weights away, unravel the waste yarn, and there is your nice little edging. You just lift it off and there it is. Isn't that pretty? Now, if I wanted to go back and do it on the bottom piece, so just turn it upside down, fold that over, pick that up onto the needles and repeat the process. You can also, of course, pick up from the edge and do it on the edge of the knitting as well as on the ends. So just make sure that you pick up an appropriate number of stitches for the rows that you've knitted. You can use your tension piece to calculate that. I'll run through it again with you. So I think if you, perhaps not 3 repeats, but 2 repeats around the edge of a baby blanket or something like that would make a really nice finish. And it looks quite nice on the other side too. So, you know, play around with it and experiment with the one that you like the most. Whether it's 1 repeat, 2 repeats, 3, right side, wrong side, this is going to be really, really versatile addition to your little repertoire of edgings. And I hope you like it.